What if I told you that centuries before Columbus embarked on his famous journey to the New World, and long before Magellan circumnavigated the globe, a Chinese admiral commanded an immense fleet that dominated the seas, connecting continents and civilizations in ways you wouldn't believe? Prepare yourselves, because this is not just another history lesson. This is the story of Admiral Zheng He, a towering figure shrouded in mystery and intrigue, whose voyages have been called the most ambitious naval explorations in human history. Our journey begins in the late 14th century, in the middle of China's Ming Dynasty, a time of incredible change and ambition. Born as He in 1371, Zheng He was not destined for an ordinary life. He was captured as a child by the Ming army and brought to serve in the emperor's court. In a twist of fate that seems straight out of a Shakespeare play, the lowly boy from Yunnan would rise to become China's most celebrated admiral. Renamed Zheng He, he was made a eunuch and trained in the arts of administration, strategy, and diplomacy. Yes, it's ironic. He lost his homeland and his freedom, yet fate granted him access to the grand chessboard of global politics. By the early 15th century, the Ming Emperor Yongle was craving to expand China's influence and showcase its might to the world. His weapon of choice? A fleet of colossal ships called the treasure ships. How big were they, you ask? Stretch your imagination. These gigantic vessels were up to 400 feet long. For context, Columbus's Santa Maria, the largest of his ships, was a minuscule 85 feet long. That's like comparing a Boeing 747 to a paper plane. And Zheng He was put in command of these floating fortresses. 7 expeditions were launched between 1405 and 1433, carrying not just soldiers and sailors, but treasure, diplomats, artisans, and scholars, a traveling empire on the water. But what were these voyages really about? Was it about discovering the unknown, or something deeper? Picture the vibrant, bustling ports of Southeast Asia, the spice markets of India, and the majestic cities of Africa. Zheng He's fleet visited over 30 modern-day countries, including Indonesia, Sri Lanka, the Arabian Peninsula, and even as far as Mogadishu on the East African coast. Along the way, they traded Chinese silk and porcelain for exotic goods like frankincense, ivory, and spices, luxuries that fed the insatiable appetite of the Ming court. But these voyages weren't just about trade. Embedded within them was a diplomatic mission to extend China's sphere of influence. Zheng He carried with him imperial edicts announcing the glory and benevolence of the Ming emperor. Some rulers happily aligned themselves with China, while others, let's just say they needed some convincing. Sri Lanka's king, for example, learned this the hard way when he resisted Zheng He's advances. The diplomatic spat turned into a brief but sharp military encounter, ending with the king being brought to China as a guest, a reminder of who held the negotiating power. Zheng He's journeys were not without controversy, even within China itself. You see, the treasure fleets weren't cheap. Some traditionalist officials argued that these ventures drained the empire's resources and distracted from defending the northern borders against the Mongols. They viewed Zheng He's expeditions as opulent parades rather than necessities. As political winds shifted after Emperor Yongle's death, support for these voyages diminished. And then, after 1433, it all stopped. The treasure ships were decommissioned, their massive blueprints burned, and Zheng He faded into the mists of history. Could it be that the Ming court feared what further voyages might bring? Or did internal strife and financial constraints strangle their bold ambitions. The mystery lingers to this day, but what makes Zheng He's story resonate even now is not just his achievements, but the questions his legacy poses. Imagine if those voyages had continued. Would China have become the first global superpower? Would Zheng He, rather than Columbus, have been credited with altering the course of world history? Interestingly, some historians believe evidence of Zheng He's fleet may even lie in the Americas, a tantalizing theory that remains unproven but fuels what-if scenarios and speculative debates. Whether or not he reached American shores, Zheng He's voyages remind us how interconnected our world has always been, even 600 years ago. Now let's circle back to something profoundly human about Zheng He's story: his resilience. Despite being taken from his family, despite incredible odds stacked against him, he transformed into a symbol of unity and exploration. His name resonates with the ambitions and contradictions of his era, a eunuch commanding a fleet larger than any the world had ever seen, a diplomat and a warrior, an emissary of peace and a harbinger of conquest. So as we close this chapter, what do we take away from Zheng He's story? It's a tale of destiny, of seizing the role you're given and shaping the world with it. It's about ambition, courage, and also the fleeting nature of power and memory. Zheng He's voyages may have been erased from Chinese priorities, but their ripples remain in the waters of history. If you found this story as fascinating as I think you did, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe for more fascinating tales from history's depths. Who knows what journey we'll uncover next? Until then, stay curious and keep exploring. See you next time.